I watched Emma's perfectly manicured hand reach for my limited edition MacBook, and I didn't move to stop her. "Just borrowing it for a presentation," she said. That same sweet smile I'd once trusted plastered across her face. "Mine's acting up again." In my first life, I would have hesitated, would have worried about seeming petty, would have handed it over and found it accidentally, dropped in the bathtub 3 days later, my entire portfolio corrupted, my deadline missed, my dream job offer rescinded. But I'd already lived through this Tuesday. I'd already lived through all of it. "Sure," I said, matching her smile. "Let me just save my work first." I pulled the laptop back and made a show of closing files while she stood there, arms crossed, that micro expression of irritation flickering across her face. The same one I'd missed the first time around. The same one that appeared whenever I didn't immediately bend to her will. 3 weeks ago, I woke up in my 23-year-old body, 6 months before my 26th birthday, gasping in the same floral-scented bedroom I'd rented with Emma Chen, my best friend since college, my worst mistake ever made. The moment I'd opened my eyes in that bedroom, I'd known something was wrong. The sunlight was coming through the window at the wrong angle. My body felt different, lighter, younger, free of the chronic tension I'd carried in my shoulders, and when I'd grabbed my phone from the nightstand, the date had confirmed what my body already knew. September 15th, 3 years earlier than it should have been. I'd sat up slowly, my heart racing, and looked around the room. The floral curtains I'd bought at Target our first week in the apartment. The cheap IKEA dresser that wobbled. The art supplies scattered across my desk. Supplies I'd eventually stop using because Emma would convince me I wasn't talented enough. And from the other room, I'd heard her voice. Emma singing along to some pop song while making coffee, completely unaware that I now knew exactly who she was and what she was going to do to me. The first time I'd signed this lease, I'd thought I was lucky. Emma had connections, Emma had style, Emma always knew the best places. This apartment in the Arts District was a dream. Exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, 20-foot ceilings, exposed ductwork painted matte black, and enough natural light to make any artist weep with joy. The kind of place I could never afford alone, not on my barely above minimum wage income from freelance graphic design work. I didn't know it would become my prison. I didn't know Emma would systematically destroy my life over 18 months, so gradually and carefully that I wouldn't realize what was happening until I was buried under debt I didn't owe, abandoned by friends I didn't betray, and fired from a job I didn't sabotage. But that was the first timeline. That first morning back, I'd lain in bed for 30 minutes, just processing, testing the reality, remembering every detail of the next 3 years, Emma's manipulations, the financial abuse, the isolation, the stolen artwork, the psychiatric hospitalization that had finally broken me completely. I'd remembered waking up in that hospital bed, restrained because they thought I was a danger to myself. I'd remembered Emma visiting, playing the concerned friend perfectly, telling the doctors about my paranoid delusions and my substance abuse and my violent outbursts, all lies, all carefully constructed over months. I'd remembered the hopelessness, the certainty that I'd never escape, never recover, never be believed. And then I'd woken up here, 3 years earlier, with all that knowledge intact. For the first hour, I'd thought maybe I actually was crazy. Maybe this was another delusion. Maybe I was still in that hospital bed, dreaming up an impossible second chance. But the details were too sharp, too real. I could feel the Egyptian cotton sheets Emma had insisted we buy, with my money, though I wouldn't realize that until much later in the first timeline. I could smell the coffee from the kitchen. I could hear the specific traffic pattern of morning rush hour outside our window. This was real. Somehow, impossibly, I'd been given a second chance. On my first morning back, after lying in bed processing the impossible, I'd gotten up and walked directly to the bathroom. I'd looked at myself in the mirror, really looked. My face was softer, younger, without the gaunt exhaustion I'd carried at the end. My eyes were clearer, my hair was healthier. This was me at 23 before Emma had ground me down to nothing. I'd showered and dressed carefully, then I'd walked directly to the rental office downstairs. Marissa, our property manager, had been surprised to see me. "Jessica, everything okay? You just moved in 2 weeks ago." "Everything's perfect," I'd said, and I'd handed her a perfectly formatted letter. 30 days notice of my intent to vacate. Marissa had read it, confusion crossing her face. Is something wrong with the apartment? With your roommate? Not at all. The apartment is beautiful and Emma seems great. I've just realized this living situation isn't going to work out for me long term. Better to recognize it early and make a clean break, right? I'd rather pay the early termination fee now than be locked in for a full year. Marissa had studied me carefully. She was good at her job, which meant she was good at reading people. This is very unusual. Most people at least try to work things out. I appreciate that, but I've thought about it carefully. This is the right decision for me. Okay, Marissa had said slowly. I'll process this. Your last day will be October 15th. The early termination fee is 1 month's rent. That's $1,100. I'll need that within 5 business days. I'll have it to you tomorrow. I'd drained my savings account that afternoon, every penny I'd managed to save, from freelance work over the previous 6 months, $1,100 exactly. The same amount Emma would steal from me 3 months into our lease in the first timeline, claiming it was for bills I'd supposedly forgotten to pay. Worth every penny. After filing my notice, I'd returned to the apartment and started preparing. Because I knew exactly what Emma was going to do. I knew every manipulation, every lie, every carefully executed step of her plan to steal my life. And this time, I was going to let her try. This time, I was going to document everything, protect myself completely, and watch her destroy herself. Here you go, I said now, 3 weeks later, handing Emma the laptop. I'd already backed up everything to 3 different cloud services that morning. Google Drive, Dropbox, and a private server Dylan had helped me set up. The file she was really after, my pitch deck for the Meridian Gallery showing, was saved under a different name in a hidden folder, and the only copies existed on my phone and my tablet, both of which required fingerprint authentication to unlock. Emma took the laptop with both hands, cradling it like something precious. You're the best, Jess. I don't know what I'd do without you. In my first life, those words had made me glow. Emma Chen, beautiful, connected, sophisticated Emma, saying she needed me. It had felt like validation, like friendship, like love. In this one, I heard them for what they were, reconnaissance, testing my boundaries, seeing how much I'd give before I started saying no, establishing a pattern of me being the giver and her being the taker. No problem, I said. Just have it back by tonight. I've got that video call with my mom. Another test, another lie. My mother and I hadn't spoken in the first timeline. Emma had made sure of that by sending her carefully edited screenshots of texts I'd never sent, voice messages she'd faked using AI software, stories about drug use and theft and lies that my mother, already suspicious of my artsy lifestyle, had been all too ready to believe. My mother, Sandra Wright, had never understood my choice to pursue art. She'd wanted me to be a lawyer like her or a doctor like my father had been. When I'd declared an art major in college, she'd called it professional suicide. When I'd moved to the city for freelance design work instead of taking a corporate job, she'd called it irresponsible. And when Emma had sent those messages, "Hi, Mom, I need money for drugs. Can you wire $500? And followed up with photos of me at parties looking drunk and disheveled, my mother had believed every word. She'd believed I'd become exactly what she'd always feared. In the first timeline, my mother had cut me off completely, had changed her number, had refused to see me even when I'd shown up at her house desperate and broken, begging her to believe me. She'd called the police and had me escorted off her property. That memory still hurt even now, the look on her boss' face, the absolute conviction that I was a liar and a user and a disappointment. This time, I'd called my mother the first day back, before Emma could poison that well. Mom, it's Jessica. Jessica, is everything all right? You sound strange. Everything's fine. I wanted to call. It's been a while. We'd talked for 2 hours that first day. I'd told her about the apartment, about my freelance work, about my plans for the Meridian Gallery submission. I'd listened to her talk about work, about her garden, about how much she missed Dad. My father, Michael Wright, had died of a heart attack 13 months before I'd woken up in my 23-year-old body. In my first timeline, I'd been too broken by Emma's abuse to properly grieve him. By the time his death had occurred, Emma had already isolated me so completely that I'd barely been functional. This time, I was present for it. I called my mother every few days. I was building a relationship with her, a real one, not the distant, disappointed connection we'd had before. And I'd warned her, gently. Mom, I have a new roommate, Emma. She seems nice, but I'm getting some weird vibes. If you ever get strange messages from my number, or if someone claiming to be my friend contacts you with concerning stories, can you call me directly to verify, before believing anything? My mother had been surprised by the request, but had agreed. Of course, honey. Is everything okay? Should you be living with someone you don't trust? It's just a precaution. I'm probably being paranoid. But Dad always said to trust your instincts, right? Invoking my father's memory had been strategic, but it was also true. Dad had been the parent who'd supported my art, who'd told me to follow my passion, who'd believed in me. Using his words had softened my mother, reminded her of the daughter I'd been before grief and disappointment had built walls between us. He did say that. All right, Jessica, I'll call you directly if anything like that happens. Emma's nuclear option was already disarmed. Emma left with my laptop now, and I pulled out my phone to check the hidden camera I'd installed in my bedroom. She didn't know about the cameras. There were 6 of them throughout the apartment, each one carefully concealed behind everyday objects. A smoke detector, a phone charger, a decorative plant holder, an alarm clock, a bookend, a picture frame. Each camera was motion-activated, streaming to encrypted cloud storage that only I could access. Each one was legally placed in my private spaces or common areas with appropriate notice. The notice had been crucial. I'd learned in my frantic research during the first week back that recording someone without consent was illegal in our state, unless you gave notice. So, on my second day in the apartment, I'd left a cheerful letter on the kitchen counter. Hey E, FYI, I'm using some security cameras around the apartment for an art project I'm working on, documentary-style stuff about modern living. Might catch you in the background sometimes. Hope that's cool. Let me know if you want me to avoid filming any specific areas. XO, Jess. Emma had laughed when she'd read it, had crumpled it up and tossed it in the recycling. You artists are so weird. Sure, whatever. Just don't put me in anything without my permission. Of course not, I'd said. It's more about spatial dynamics and daily rhythms anyway. She hadn't read past the first line, hadn't asked for details, hadn't requested to see the footage or asked where the cameras were placed. Perfect. The camera feeds were clean, streaming to a cloud storage service registered under a business LLC I'd created specifically for this purpose. Every video was time-stamped, encrypted, and admissible as evidence if needed. I watched Emma's habits, her schedule, her visitors. I documented everything. In my first life, Emma's plan had been elegant in its cruelty. She'd isolated me first, turned our mutual friends against me with carefully placed stories about my jealousy, my instability, my substance abuse. She'd done it so gradually that I hadn't noticed until I was completely alone. The isolation had started with small comments. Did you see how weird Madison was acting around you at that party? Emma would say. I think she might be jealous of your talent. Or, Trey mentioned you've seemed really stressed lately, like concerning level stressed. I told him you were fine, but maybe you should take it easy on the drinking at social events. I'd never been a heavy drinker. 1 or 2 drinks at parties, max. But Emma's comments had planted seeds, made me self-conscious, made me withdraw, made me second-guess every interaction. Then she'd escalated. She'd shown our friends carefully edited text screenshots that made me look irrational and mean. She'd told them I'd said things about them that I'd never said. She'd created situations where I looked bad, inviting me to events and then telling people I'd canceled last minute because I didn't want to see them, when actually she'd never told me about the events at all. By month 6 of the first timeline, I'd lost Madison, Trey, and most of our friend group. They'd thought I was spiraling. They'd thought I was becoming a difficult, dramatic person. They'd thought Emma was being incredibly patient with me. This time, I'd started laying groundwork immediately. The day after I'd filed my move-out notice, I'd texted Madison, "Hey, want to grab coffee this week? Just the 2 of us? Feel like we haven't had quality girl time in forever." Madison and I had been friends since freshman year of college. She was pre-law, practical and sharp, the kind of person who thought 3 steps ahead. In my first timeline, Emma had destroyed that friendship by telling Madison I'd called her boring and basic and said her boyfriend was a downgrade. All lies. But convincing lies delivered with false reluctance. I hate to even tell you this, but Jess said some really hurtful things about you at that party last week. I think the drinking is really getting to her. I'm worried. This time, I got to Madison first. We'd met at Cosmic Coffee, the place that would become my and Dylan's regular spot. Madison had ordered her usual oat milk latte, and I'd gotten black coffee, and we'd grabbed a table by the window. "Everything okay?" Madison had asked immediately. "Your text sounded kind of intense." "Everything's fine. I wanted to talk to you about something kind of weird." "Okay." I'd chosen my words carefully. Not too dramatic, not too accusatory. Just concerned. "You know how I just moved in with Emma?" "Yeah, nice place. I saw the photos." "It is, but I'm getting some weird vibes from her. Like, she's a little too interested in my schedule, my passwords, my work. And she makes these comments that sound nice but feel off, you know what I mean?" Madison had frowned. "Like what?" "Like yesterday, she made a joke about how I probably wouldn't finish my Meridian submission on time because I'm such a procrastinator." But I'm not a procrastinator. She doesn't really know my work habits. It felt like she was trying to plant doubt in my head. That is weird. And she keeps asking to borrow my laptop, my art supplies, my camera, always with some excuse. I don't mind sharing, but it's starting to feel like boundary testing. Madison had studied me. "Are you thinking about moving out?" "I already filed notice I move out mid-October." "Wow, that's fast." "I know, but something in my gut is telling me this isn't a good situation. And I wanted to tell you directly because..." I'd paused, choosing the next words carefully. "Because if Emma starts telling you concerning things about me over the next few weeks, that I'm acting weird, or drinking too much, or saying mean things, I want you to know in advance that I'm not, and I want you to call me directly to verify anything she says." Madison had leaned back, processing. "You think she's going to do that?" "I think she might. I don't know for sure, but the vibe I'm getting is manipulative, like she's setting something up." Jesus, Jess. I could be totally wrong. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but I'd rather warn you now than have you get blindsided with some story about me that isn't true. "I appreciate that." Madison had reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "And for the record, if anyone tells me something concerning about you, I'll definitely call you to get your side. That's friend rule number 1. "Thank you." We'd spent the rest of that coffee date talking about her relationship, her law school applications, normal friend stuff. But I'd planted the seed. When Emma started her campaign against me, Madison would remember this conversation. I'd had similar conversations with Trey, with Aisha, with James, everyone in our friend group who mattered. Not dramatic, not accusatory, just gentle warnings that my new roommate situation felt off, and if they heard concerning stories about me in the next few weeks, to please verify directly with me first. Most of them had seemed skeptical that Emma would do anything so calculated, but they'd all agreed to check with me first. And that agreement, that moment of doubt, would be enough to slow Emma's manipulation campaign, after Emma had tangled our finances. "Let's just use one account for rent and utilities," she'd suggested 3 weeks into living together in the first timeline. "Easier than splitting every bill manually. We can both contribute our share, and I'll handle the payments since I'm better at managing this kind of thing." I'd agreed, grateful that Emma was taking charge of the boring adult stuff. And she'd slowly drained that account, making sure the shortfalls looked like my fault. She'd put bills in my name without telling me, run up charges on shared accounts, defaulted on payments that affected my credit score. By the time I'd realized what was happening, I'd been $6,000 in debt for charges I hadn't made, with late payments and collections destroying my credit. This time, when Emma had suggested combining finances, I'd smiled and said, "That's so sweet of you to offer, but I'm trying to really learn financial management. My therapist suggested I handle all my own bills and tracking, and as part of building adult competence. So I'll keep everything separate. It's better for my personal growth. The mention of a therapist was strategic. It implied I was already talking to a professional, which would make any future claims about my mental health more complicated for Emma to navigate. Emma had looked disappointed for just a flash before recovering. Oh, totally. That makes sense. Whatever works for you. But she'd tried again the next week. Hey, the internet bill is due and I'm short this month. Can you cover my half and I'll pay you back? Sure, but let's keep a spreadsheet so we both have records. I'll set up a shared Google sheet and we can track everything. That seems like overkill. It's actually what my therapist recommended. Keeping clear records helps with my anxiety. The therapist, Dr. Sarah Chen, a cognitive behavioral specialist I'd actually started seeing the week after I'd woken up in my 23-year-old body, had been surprised by my request. You want to document potential financial abuse from your roommate? I want to make sure I have healthy boundaries and clear records in all my relationships, I'd said carefully. I've had some past experiences with people taking advantage of my generosity, and I want to make sure I'm protecting myself going forward. Dr. Chen had agreed that clear financial boundaries and documentation were healthy practices. She'd written me a letter recommending I maintain separate accounts and keep detailed records of all shared expenses. A letter I'd kept in my files, just in case I needed professional validation of my behavior later. Emma had backed off on the shared finances after my therapist excuse. She'd found other ways to try to access my money. Emergency loans she never paid back, suggesting I pay for groceries that she'd then eat most of, proposing we split shared furniture that she'd picked out without my input. But I'd maintained firm boundaries on everything. The apartment damage had come next in the original timeline. Small things at first. A broken window she blamed on my drunk friends who'd never visited. Wine stains on the carpet from a party I hadn't thrown. Cigarette burns she claimed were from my smoking habit when I'd never smoked a day in my life. Then bigger things, a hole in the wall, a cracked countertop, a destroyed bathroom door. The landlord's documentation had only shown my name on the complaints because Emma had made sure she was out of town whenever the damage occurred. This time I'd documented the apartment's pristine condition from day one. I'd done a video walkthrough the day we'd moved in, narrating every room, every surface, every fixture. The video was time-stamped, showing the date and time clearly. And here's the living room, I'd said to the camera, panning across the space. Beautiful original brick, clean carpet, no damage to the walls. Here's the bathroom, pristine tile, all fixtures intact. Here's my bedroom, clean walls, clean carpet, working door, and locks. I'd sent a copy of that video to Marissa, the property manager, with a cheerful email. Hi, Marissa. I'm so excited about the apartment and I wanted to document how beautiful it is on move-in day. Thanks for maintaining the place so well. Looking forward to a great year here. Marissa had responded, That's very thoughtful, Jessica. We do appreciate tenants who take care of the space. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. That video was time-stamped proof that the apartment had been perfect when I'd moved in. Any damage that occurred after that point would need to be clearly attributed to who caused it. And I'd continued documenting. Every week, I'd done a quick video check of the apartment. October 2nd, everything still looks great. October 9th, all good. October 16th? On October 16th in this timeline, I'd be gone. The final blow in my first timeline had been professional. Emma had stolen my portfolio, the physical copies and the digital files, and submitted my work as her own to the Meridian Gallery. The Meridian Gallery was the most prestigious emerging artist venue in the city. Getting a show there could launch a career. I'd spent months preparing my submission in the first timeline, a series of digital illustrations exploring themes of urban isolation and forced connection. 20 pieces, each one blending photography with digital painting to create surreal, emotionally resonant images. I'd poured everything into that work. My loneliness, my grief over my father, my complicated relationship with my mother, my struggle to make it as an artist. It was the most personal, most vulnerable work I'd ever created. And Emma had stolen it. She'd taken my external hard drive, the one I'd foolishly kept on my desk unencrypted because I'd trusted her. She'd copied everything, deleted the originals from my computer while I was asleep, and submitted the work as her own. When I'd confronted her, she'd been calm. What work, Jess? I don't know what you're talking about. My Meridian submission, my portfolio, it's gone and you probably deleted it by accident. You've been really scattered lately. The drinking, I don't have a drinking problem. That's what everyone says, honey. Look, I'm worried about you. Maybe you should take a break from art for a while. Focus on your mental health. I tried to contact Meridian, tried to explain that the submission under Emma Chen's name was actually my work. But Emma had been methodical. She'd created months of fake progress photos using my sketches as references. She'd manufactured a paper trail of purchases for art supplies. She'd had our mutual friends testify that they'd seen her working on her series for months. And I'd had nothing. No backups, no proof, no evidence. Just the word of someone everyone thought was having a breakdown against the word of put-together, professional, charming Emma Chen. Emma had won the Meridian show. My work had been displayed to critical acclaim. She'd gotten gallery representation, commission requests, press coverage. She'd launched a career on my stolen work while I'd spiraled into complete professional collapse. This time, I'd made sure that could never happen. The day after I'd woken up in my 23-year-old body, I'd gone to a coffee shop 3 neighborhoods away and met with Dylan Park. Dylan Park was a photographer I'd met at a gallery opening 2 years ago in the original timeline. We talked for hours about art and technique and the struggle of being an emerging artist in an expensive city. He'd mentioned wanting to collaborate sometime, do something with mixed media, his photography as the base layer, someone else's illustration or painting on top. I think there's something really powerful in combining the real and the imagined, he'd said. Like photograph the truth, then illustrate the emotional truth on top of it. In the first timeline, Emma had sabotaged that friendship before it could develop. She'd shown up uninvited to our first coffee meeting, monopolized the conversation, and later told Dylan I'd said his work was derivative and boring, and that I'd only been nice to him because I felt sorry for him. Dylan had never spoken to me again. This time, I'd messaged him before Emma could interfere. Hey, Dylan, remember we talked about collaborating at that gallery opening? Want to grab coffee and discuss ideas? I'm free this week. We'd met at Cosmic Coffee and talked for 3 hours. I'd been genuine and enthusiastic and careful not to mention Emma at all. Dylan had shown me his recent work, stark black and white photographs of urban spaces in transition. Buildings being torn down, new construction rising, neighborhoods changing. I'm fascinated by impermanence, he'd said. How nothing stays the same. How we're always in the middle of becoming something else. What if we layered that concept? I'd suggested. Your photos of physical change, my illustrations of emotional change, like a building being demolished with abstract figures rising from the rubble. Or new construction with illustrations of hope and fear and possibility woven through it. Dylan's eyes had lit up. Yes, that's exactly it. The physical transformation and the internal transformation happening simultaneously. We could call it reconstruction, like rebuilding physical spaces and rebuilding ourselves. I love that. Want to start working on it? Absolutely. We'd shaken hands, exchanged emails, and planned our first work session. I hadn't told Emma about Dylan, hadn't mentioned the collaboration, had carefully kept every meeting, every email, every work session completely separate from my life with Emma. Dylan and I had met twice a week for the past 3 weeks. He'd show me his latest photographs and I'd sketch out illustration ideas. We'd debate composition, discuss themes, refine our vision. The work we were creating was extraordinary, better than anything I'd done alone, better than the stolen portfolio Emma would submit. It was about rebirth, though Dylan didn't know how literal that was for me. We'd created 12 pieces so far, each one a collaboration. Dylan's photography provided the base, a demolished building, a neighborhood in flux, graffiti covering old walls, new luxury apartments rising where historical buildings once stood. My digital illustrations layered over his photos added the emotional narrative, abstract human figures emerging from debris, hands reaching toward change, faces turning toward light, bodies rebuilding from fragmentation. Every piece was time-stamped with creation dates. Every email between us was saved. Every coffee shop receipt from our work sessions was photographed and filed. Every progress photo was backed up in triplicate. We'd submitted reconstruction to Meridian Gallery 2 weeks ago under both our names. The submission included complete documentation of our collaborative process. Emails planning the project, progress photos of each piece, receipts for supplies, even testimony from Cosmic Coffee baristas who'd seen us working together weekly. It was airtight, unassailable. Impossible to claim that anyone else had created it. Emma didn't know any of it existed. The apartment door opened now, and Emma breezed back in, my laptop in hand. "Crisis averted! You're seriously a lifesaver." "Find what you needed?" I asked innocently. "Absolutely," she set the laptop on the coffee table, instead of bringing it back to my room. A power move, claiming my space, showing me that my things were really shared things, establishing dominance. I let her have it. I'd wiped that laptop of anything important weeks ago. Everything that mattered was backed up and encrypted across multiple secure locations, accessible only from my phone and a separate tablet I kept at Dylan's studio. The laptop she'd just borrowed had nothing on it except old practice files, abandoned projects, and a decoy folder labeled Meridian Submission Final that contained a series of generic digital paintings I'd created specifically to misdirect her. I watched her eyes flick to the laptop, calculating. She wanted to look through it more thoroughly, wanted to see what I was working on, wanted to assess what she could steal. But she couldn't do it while I was here. "How's the Meridian piece coming?" Emma asked, settling onto the couch like a cat claiming sunlight. "You've been so secretive about it." This was new dialogue. In the first timeline, she hadn't asked because she'd already known. She'd watched me work for months before stealing it. She was fishing now, trying to figure out what I was creating, what she could take. "It's going really well," I said. "I think I finally found my voice, you know? It's different from anything I've done before." All true. The piece I was actually submitting, the collaboration with Dylan, was unlike anything from my first timeline. It was better, sharper, fed by rage and the crystal clarity of betrayal. "I'd love to see it sometime," Emma said. "You know, I'm always happy to give feedback." In the first timeline, Emma had been an art history minor in college. She knew enough to sound credible when talking about art, enough to fake her way through artist statements and gallery talks. But she wasn't actually a creator. She didn't have the technical skills or the creative vision. She was a predator, a skilled one, but still just a predator. "Soon," I promised. "I'm really superstitious about showing work before it's done. Artist thing, you know?" She didn't push. She didn't need to. In her mind, she had months to figure out what I was creating and how to steal it. She thought I'd be here until next September, trapped in a year-long lease, giving her plenty of time to execute her plan. She didn't know she had 22 days until I vanished from her life completely. That night, I lay in bed checking my countdown app. 22 days until I moved out, 25 days until the Meridian submission deadline, 30 days until Emma would discover that the security deposit she was planning to pocket was actually forfeit due to the multiple lease violations I'd been carefully documenting. My phone lit up with a notification from the camera in the living room. Emma was still awake, laptop open. I switched to the feed and watched her carefully lift my laptop's screen and start navigating through files. She was looking for the Meridian work, trying to find my submission so she could copy it, study it, figure out how to steal it. I watched her click through folders, growing increasingly frustrated. She opened the decoy folder, Meridian Submission Final, and I saw her expression shift to satisfaction. She started copying files to a flash drive she'd pulled from her pocket. Perfect. Those files were garbage. Generic, mediocre digital paintings that looked superficially impressive but had no real substance. If Emma tried to submit them, she'd embarrass herself. But more importantly, I now had video evidence of her stealing my files. Time-stamped, clear footage of her copying data from my computer without permission. That was a crime. I took a screen recording of the security footage, backed it up to 3 separate locations, and went to sleep, smiling. The next 3 weeks followed a careful rhythm. Emma escalated her manipulation, and I let her think it was working. She invited our mutual friends over for a dinner party on a Wednesday night. I'd deliberately made plans to have dinner with Dr. Chen that evening, establishing an alibi, making sure I wasn't around for whatever Emma had planned. Through the baby monitor I'd hidden in the living room air vent, I listened to the entire dinner. "Where's Jess?" Madison had asked. Therapy, Emma said, loading the word with significance. She's been going twice a week lately. I'm glad she's getting help, but I'm also worried about what that means, you know? Is she okay? Trey asked. I think so, but there have been some concerning behaviors. Like she counts things obsessively, wine bottles, silverware, her art supplies, and she accuses me of taking them. Emma sighed dramatically. It's hard to live with. I gripped my phone, listening. This was the narrative Emma had used in the first timeline. Paint me as paranoid and unstable. Establish a pattern of mental illness. Make herself look like the patient, suffering friend. That does sound stressful, Aisha said carefully. It is, and I feel terrible even talking about it because I love Jess, but I'm starting to wonder if she's using. Like some of the behaviors, the paranoia, the mood swings, the accusations, they fit the pattern, you know? There it was, the suggestion of drug use. The same lie she told my mother in the first timeline. But this time, my friends had been primed. Have you talked to Jess about these concerns? Madison asked, her voice carefully neutral. I've tried, but she gets really defensive. Accuses me of making things up. Emma, Madison said slowly, Jess actually warned me that you might say concerning things about her. She said you were acting weird about boundaries and that she was moving out because the living situation felt unhealthy. Silence on the recording. Long, awkward silence. She told you that? Emma's voice was tight. Yeah, like 3 weeks ago. She said if you started telling people she was acting strange or had substance issues or was saying mean things, we should call her directly to verify, because she thought you might try to manipulate the friend group. Emma laughed, but it sounded forced. That's crazy. That's literally paranoid delusion. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Is it? Trey interrupted. Because that's a really specific warning. Like, she predicted exactly what you'd say. She's manipulating you. Or you're manipulating us, Madison said flatly. Look, Emma, I don't know what's going on between you two, but Jess has been my friend for years and she's never acted paranoid or accusatory. Then she moves in with you and suddenly you're telling us she's mentally unstable and possibly on drugs? That's a hell of a coincidence. I'm going to call Jess, Madison said, right now, and ask her directly what's going on. Through the baby monitor, I heard movement, then Madison's voice on speakerphone. Jess? Hey, sorry to bother you. Are you okay to talk? I'd been expecting this call. Of course, what's up? I'm at your apartment with Emma and some friends. Emma's saying some concerning things about you. Paranoia, obsessive behaviors, possible drug use. She says you've been acting really unstable. Huh, I said, keeping my voice calm and measured. That's interesting. I'm actually with my therapist right now, Dr. Sarah Chen. We're working on healthy boundaries and financial management. Dr. Chen, would you be willing to speak with my friend? Emma's apparently telling people I have a drug problem. I handed the phone to Dr. Chen, who I'd warned about this possibility weeks ago. Hello, this is Dr. Sarah Chen. I'm Jessica's therapist, and while I can't discuss specifics of our sessions due to confidentiality, I can confirm that Jessica is engaged in productive therapeutic work around boundaries and interpersonal relationships. She does not present with any signs of substance abuse, paranoia, or psychological instability. In fact, she's been quite proactive about her mental health. Thank you, Madison said. That's really helpful. Dr. Chen handed the phone back to me. Jess, your friend is lucky to have someone who checks facts instead of accepting gossip. That's a sign of true friendship. Thanks, Dr. Chen, I said. Then into the phone. Madison, I'm moving out in 3 weeks. I gave notice a month ago because living with Emma was giving me bad vibes. That's it. No drugs, no paranoia, no instability. Just incompatible roommates. Got it, Madison said. Sorry Emma dragged us into this. The call ended. Through the baby monitor, I heard Trey say, Well, that was awkward. She's lying, Emma insisted. She manipulated the therapist. Oh. Emma, stop, Aisha said quietly, son. Just stop. Whatever's going on with you two, keep us out of it. The dinner party had broken up shortly after that. Emma's attempt to turn our friends against me had backfired, spectacularly. I listened to her crying alone in the living room afterward, frustrated tears of rage and humiliation. Part of me felt bad, the old Jessica, the one who always wanted everyone to be happy, who hated conflict and would sacrifice herself to keep the peace. But that Jessica had ended up destroyed. This Jessica remembered exactly what Emma was capable of and felt no sympathy at all. The following week, Emma tried a different tactic: financial. She cornered me in the kitchen on a Thursday morning, looking serious. "Jess, we need to talk about money." "Okay, honey," I said, pouring coffee. "I've been going through my budget and I realize I've been paying more than my share of household expenses. I've got receipts and everything. I think you owe me about $800. I set down my coffee mug carefully. "Show me." She pulled out a folder, professionally organized with printed bank statements and highlighted charges. Emma had always been good at making things look official. I scanned through the documents. She'd included utilities that I'd already paid her for through Venmo, grocery bills from before I'd moved in, cleaning supplies that she'd purchased only for her bathroom, and a shared television that she'd bought without consulting me and that I'd never watched. "This charge from September 3rd, I said, pointing. "Utilities, $180. You're saying I didn't pay this?" "Correct." I pulled out my phone and opened Venmo. "Here's my payment to you on September 3rd. $180. Memo. Utilities with your confirmation." Emma's jaw tightened. That was for something else. The memo says utilities. "And here's October 2nd, another $175 for utilities. November 4th, $190. Every payment clearly labeled, every one confirmed by you." We went through each line item. For every charge she claimed I hadn't paid, I had digital receipts. For every shared expense, I had evidence I'd either paid my portion or had never agreed to the purchase. "You know what's interesting?" I said after we'd gone through everything. "This looks a lot like financial fraud. Claiming I owe you money for things I've already paid. That's actually illegal. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt and assuming you made honest mistakes in your accounting," I interrupted. "But if you continue to claim I owe you money that I've already paid, I'll need to report this to the police as attempted financial fraud. Do you understand?" Emma stared at me, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. She'd expected the same doormat Jessica from the first timeline. She'd expected someone who would crumble under pressure, who would pay just to avoid conflict. "We're done here," I said. "Don't bring this up again." She didn't, but 2 days later, I came home to find a crack in my bedroom wall and wine spilled on the carpet in the hallway outside my room. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," Emma said when I discovered it. "I was carrying wine to my room and I tripped. The bottle hit the wall. I'll pay for the cleaning, obviously." But she wouldn't pay. I knew that. In the first timeline, she'd made similar mistakes and always had excuses for why she couldn't pay right away, why it was actually partially my fault, why we should just split the cost. This time, I took photos immediately, time-stamped, detailed photos of the damage. Then I called Marissa. "Hi, Marissa, it's Jessica. There's been an incident in the apartment, damage to the wall and carpet. I wanted to report it immediately so it's documented. My roommate Emma spilled wine and broke a bottle. She's claiming responsibility, but I want to make sure the property management knows this isn't my damage." "Thanks for reporting, Jessica. I'll make a note in your file. Can you send me photos?" Sending now. I emailed the photos with a full description. November 8th, approximately 7:30 p.m., Emma Chen spilled wine in hallway and damaged wall. She verbally acknowledged responsibility in my presence. I am reporting this to ensure it doesn't affect my security deposit or move-out inspection. Marissa responded within an hour. "Noted. This will be charged to Emma Chen's account. Your move-out inspection is still scheduled for October 15th. Based on your documentation, you should receive a full deposit refund." I forwarded that email to my personal archive and to Dr. Chen as an additional backup. Emma was digging her own grave, and I was just holding the flashlight. 3 days before move-out, Dylan texted me. "Meridian Gallery just emailed. We need to talk. Can you meet at Cosmic in an hour?" My heart raced. This was early. The gallery wasn't supposed to announce finalists for another week. I grabbed my jacket and headed out, not bothering to tell Emma where I was going. Dylan was already at our usual table when I arrived, 2 coffees waiting. His expression was carefully neutral, which could mean anything. "What did they say?" I asked, sitting down. He slid his phone across the table, email open. "Dear Mr. Park and Ms. Wright, the selection committee has reviewed your submission, Reconstruction, and we are pleased to inform you that your work has been selected as a finalist for our Emerging Artists Showcase. Your collaborative series will be displayed in our main gallery space during our December exhibition. We were particularly impressed by the integration of photography and digital illustration, and the way your work explores themes of urban transformation and emotional resilience. The documentation you provided of your collaborative process was exemplary. Please confirm your availability for our opening reception on December 18th. We'll be sending a formal contract and exhibition details within the next week. Congratulations on this achievement." I read it twice, 3 times, making sure it was real. "Jess," Dylan said carefully, "are you okay?" I was crying. I didn't realize it until tears hit the phone screen. In my first timeline, this email had gone to Emma. Emma had stood in Meridian Gallery in front of my stolen work, accepting congratulations, launching a career on my talent and my pain. In this timeline, the email had gone to me and Dylan, celebrating real collaborative work, recognizing legitimate talent. "I'm okay," I said, wiping my eyes. "I'm better than okay. This is everything." Dylan grinned. "We did it. We actually fucking did it." We spent the next hour planning. The opening reception, the artist statement we'd need to prepare, the documentation we'd bring for the exhibition. Meridian wanted process photos, so we gathered every coffee shop receipt, every email, every progress shot we'd taken. "They really emphasized the documentation," Dylan noted. "That's unusual." "Maybe they've had issues with artists claiming collaborative work wasn't collaborative?" I suggested innocently. "Maybe. Either way, we're covered. We've got everything." We did. And when Emma tried to claim this work was stolen, which she would, I was certain, we'd have ironclad proof that it was ours. I returned to the apartment that evening to find Emma waiting for me, laptop open, expression stormy. "Where have you been?" she demanded. "Coffee with a friend. Why?" "You've been sneaking around a lot lately. Secret meetings, secret phone calls. What are you hiding?" This was new. Emma going on offense, trying to flip the script. She was feeling cornered and she was lashing out. "I'm not hiding anything," I said calmly. I'm just living my life, which I'll be doing in my own apartment in 3 days, so my schedule really isn't your concern anymore." "Right, moving out, running away because you can't handle conflict." "I'm not running from anything. I'm walking towards something better." "What's better than this apartment? Than living with your best friend?" "Living alone. Having boundaries. Not feeling like I need to document every interaction to protect myself." Emma's eyes flickered. "What does that mean?" "It means I've noticed your patterns. The boundary testing, the gaslighting, the financial manipulation. I've documented all of it and I'm protecting myself. That's what healthy people do." "You're paranoid." "I'm prepared. There's a difference." I walked to my room and locked the door. Through the baby monitor, I heard Emma make a phone call. "Mom, it's me. Can I come stay with you for a while?" "Yeah, the roommate situation isn't working out." She's actually kind of scary. Paranoid, accusatory. I think she might be on something. "No, I'm fine, just stressed. I'll tell you more when I see you. Love you too." Setting up her exit strategy. Making sure she had somewhere to go when the lease fell apart. Smart, but not smart enough. Move-out day arrived with bright sunshine and cool October air that smelled like autumn and new beginnings. I'd hired professional movers, 2 guys with a truck, paid for in cash that I'd saved specifically for this purpose. They arrived at 10 a.m. sharp. "Everything in the bedroom goes," I told them. "All the boxes, all the furniture that's marked with my name. Nothing from the common areas except my kitchen supplies. They're in the boxes labeled Kitchen, Jess." Emma emerged from her room as the movers started loading. She was wearing expensive pajamas and her hair was perfectly messy, like she'd just woken up, though I knew from the baby monitor footage that she'd been awake since 6 a.m., pacing and planning. "You're really doing this," she said. "I gave 30 days notice 4 weeks ago. This shouldn't be a surprise. I just thought you might change your mind, that we could work things out." "There's nothing to work out. We're incompatible as roommates. That's all." "Is it?" Emma's voice sharpened. "Or is this part of some scheme? Some plan to make me look bad?" "Emma, I've literally just been living my life and preparing to move. If you look bad, that's your own doing." The movers loaded efficiently. By 11 a.m., everything I owned was in the truck. By noon, my room was empty, professionally cleaned, walls intact, no damage anywhere. Marissa arrived at 12:30 for the final walkthrough. She inspected my bedroom with meticulous care, checking walls, carpet, fixtures, everything. She took photos, made notes on her tablet, nodded approval. "Perfect condition," Marissa said. "Jessica, I have to say, your documentation throughout this process has been exemplary. The video walkthrough on move-in, the regular updates, the immediate reporting of any issues. It's made this incredibly easy." "I just wanted to make sure everything was clear," I said. "Well, it is. Your security deposit will be processed within 5 business days. Full refund, no deductions." Emma appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. "What about the common areas? The damage in the hallway, the wine stain?" "The damage you reported you caused," Marissa said coolly, checking her tablet. "Yes, we have that documented. Jessica reported it immediately and you verbally accepted responsibility. That will be assessed during your final inspection when your lease ends." "But based on the documentation Jessica provided, including time-stamped photographs and your own acknowledgement of responsibility, that damage will be charged to your account, Ms. Chen." Emma's face went white. "That's not fair. We're roommates. We should split any damage. That's not how it works. Damage is charged to whoever caused it. Jessica has clear documentation showing the apartment was pristine when she moved in and remained pristine in her spaces. The damage occurred in your spaces and you acknowledged causing it." "She's been setting me up, recording me, documenting everything. She's been planning this." "Ms. Chen," Marissa interrupted, her voice cold. "Jessica gave you written notice about security cameras in her first week here. She's been transparent about her documentation. If you feel you've been treated unfairly, you're welcome to review your lease and consult with an attorney. But based on the evidence I have, Jessica has fulfilled all her obligations and is entitled to a full deposit refund." I signed the move-out papers and handed over my keys. The movers were waiting in the truck outside, engine running. "Good luck, Emma," I said. I meant it. She was going to need it. My new apartment was a studio in a neighborhood called Riverside, across town from the Arts District, smaller and cheaper, but entirely mine. The movers helped me unload everything, and by 3 p.m. I was alone in my new space. I stood in the center of the empty studio, boxes stacked around me, afternoon light streaming through the single large window, and I breathed. Free. I was free. No more Emma, no more manipulation, no more walking on eggshells or documenting every interaction or preparing for the next attack. Just me, my art, and a future that was entirely my own. I spent the afternoon unpacking, hung my clothes in the small closet, arranged my art supplies on the built-in desk, set up my laptop and tablet at my workspace. The apartment was tiny compared to the Arts District place, maybe 400 square feet total, but it was mine. Every corner belonged to me. Every decision was mine alone. That evening, I made tea and sat by the window, watching the city lights come on as the sun set. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. "Hope the move went well. Wanted to grab dinner this weekend? Celebrate your freedom?" "Definitely," I texted back. "Saturday?" "Perfect. Proud of you for getting out of that situation." I smiled. My friendships had survived. I'd protected them by being proactive, by warning everyone before Emma could poison them against me. My phone buzzed again. Dylan this time. "How's the new place? Also, Meridian sent the contract. It's real. We're really doing this." "Place is perfect. And yes, we're really doing this. Want to meet Monday to work on our artist statement? 100%. Cosmic at 11? See you there." I made dinner, just ramen and vegetables, nothing fancy, and ate while going through my documentation one more time. I had everything organized: financial records, security camera footage, emails, text messages, receipts, Dr. Chen's letter, Marissa's confirmations. Everything that proved I'd been a model tenant and that Emma had caused her own problems. I didn't think I'd need all of it. Emma would probably just eat the costs, move back home, and try to rebuild somewhere else. But I kept everything anyway, just in case. That night, I slept better than I had in 3 years, both lifetimes. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 32 text messages, all from Emma's number. The first few were angry. "You fucking bitch! You set me up! This is harassment! I'm going to sue you!" Then desperate. "Please, Jess, we can work this out. I'm sorry for everything. Can we just talk? I'm scared I can't afford this." Then threatening. "You have no idea what you've done. I know people who can make your life hell. You think you've won, but this isn't over. I'm going to destroy your art career before it even starts." I read through them all with detached interest. This was the real Emma, unfiltered and raw. The mask had come completely off. I blocked her number and made breakfast. An hour later, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Jessica Wright?" A woman's voice, professional and clipped. "Yes?" "This is Detective Sarah Morrison with the Financial Crimes Unit. I'm calling about a report you filed regarding identity theft and fraud." The credit cards. I'd almost forgotten about those in the chaos of moving. "Yes, that's correct. Emma Chen, my former roommate, attempted to open several credit cards in my name without my permission. We've been investigating your report, and we'd like you to come in to provide a formal statement. We have some additional evidence we'd like to discuss with you." We scheduled an appointment for Tuesday. I hung up feeling oddly calm. This was justice, not revenge. Emma had committed actual crimes, and now there would be actual consequences. The following Monday, Dylan and I met at Cosmic Coffee to work on our artist statement. We spread out our documentation, photos of each piece, the progression of our collaboration, our individual statements about the work. "I'm thinking we lead with the concept of transformation," Dylan said, "both physical and emotional. How spaces transform and how we transform with them. And collaboration as its own form of reconstruction," I added. "Two artists building something new together, creating something neither of us could create alone." We wrote for 2 hours, refining our language, making sure every word was precise. The statement needed to be professional, thoughtful, and completely ours. Reconstruction explores the intersection of physical and emotional transformation in urban spaces, Dylan read from his laptop. Through the integration of documentary photography and digital illustration, we examine how environments shape consciousness and how consciousness reimagines environment. Each piece in this series represents a collaboration not just between two artists, but between reality and imagination, between what is and what could be. "That's perfect," I said. "You want to add anything about personal resilience? I know that's a big theme for you." I thought about it, about rebirth and second chances and surviving destruction. But those themes were too raw, too revealing. "Maybe something subtle," I said. "Like, say, reconstruction is both destruction and creation, ending and beginning. It requires demolishing what no longer serves us to build what we're becoming." Dylan grinned. "That's great. Meta-level transformation." We finished the statement and sent it to Meridian. Then we spent the rest of the afternoon talking about the opening reception, about what we'd wear, about the critics and collectors who might attend. "This could change everything for us," Dylan said. "Meridian launches careers." I know. I did know. In my first timeline, it had launched Emma's career. In this one, it would launch mine and Dylan's. That Tuesday, I went to the police station and gave my formal statement about the credit card fraud. Detective Morrison was thorough, taking me through every detail of Emma's attempt to open accounts in my name. "We've subpoenaed the credit card company's records," she explained. "The applications were filed from your apartment's IP address, but they came from a device registered to Emma Chen. The signatures on the applications don't match yours. We had a handwriting analyst compare them. It's a clear case of identity fraud." What happens now? We're building a case. With your testimony and the physical evidence, we have enough to file charges. Emma Chen will be arrested and charged with identity theft and attempted fraud. If convicted, she's looking at probation and restitution at minimum, possibly jail time depending on the judge. Okay, Detective Morrison studied me. You don't seem surprised or upset. I'm not surprised. Emma's been escalating her behavior for weeks. I documented everything because I knew she'd eventually do something illegal. That's unusually prepared. I have a good therapist, I said. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Dylan and I met daily to finalize details for the Meridian exhibition. We selected which process photos to display alongside the finished pieces. We practiced our artist talk. We ordered business cards and printed postcards with images of our work. I also spent time with Madison, Trey, and Aisha, rebuilding friendships, proving that the concerning Jessica Emma had described didn't exist. We had coffee dates, watched movies, went to other gallery openings together. They saw me as I actually was, functional, creative, healthy. You seem really good, Madison said over dinner one evening. Like, better than I've ever seen you. I feel better. Getting away from Emma, having my own space, working on art I'm proud of. It's like I can finally breathe. Emma really did a number on you, huh? She tried to, but I caught it early and got out. Smart. On December 1st, I got a call from Marissa. Jessica, I thought you should know, Emma Chen has been evicted from the apartment. She failed to pay rent for November and defaulted on the damages she owed. When we went to conduct her final inspection, we found extensive damage to her bedroom. Holes in the walls, carpet destroyed, multiple lease violations. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. You did everything right. You documented, you reported, you protected yourself. I wish more tenants were as responsible as you. Thanks, Marissa. After we hung up, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, mostly. Vindication. But also a hollow sadness for who Emma could have been if she'd chosen differently. In my first timeline, Emma had destroyed me and built a life on the ruins. In this timeline, she'd destroyed herself while I'd built a life on solid ground. The choices we make. The people we choose to be. December 18th arrived cold and clear. The Meridian Gallery opening was scheduled for 7 p.m. I spent the afternoon getting ready. A simple black dress I'd bought with my security deposit refund, minimal jewelry, professional but artistic. Dylan picked me up at 6:30, wearing a perfectly tailored suit that made him look like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Ready? He asked. Ready. The gallery was already crowded when we arrived. The space was beautiful, white walls, track lighting. Our 12-piece reconstruction series displayed prominently on the main wall. Each piece was framed professionally, with small placards showing the title, our names, and the medium. People clustered in front of our work, examining the photographs, tracing the illustrated elements, reading our artist statement. I heard fragments of conversation. The layering technique is remarkable. I love how the illustrations emerge from the photographs, like memory or emotion made visible. This is the kind of work that defines a generation. A critic from the city's alternative weekly approached us. Dylan Park and Jessica Wright, I'm Marcus Chen from the Weekly. I'd love to do a feature on your collaboration. This work is extraordinary. We talked to Marcus for 20 minutes, explaining our process, our inspiration, our vision. He took notes, asked intelligent questions, and promised to send us the article before publication. A collector bought 2 pieces that night, then 3 more. By 9 p.m., 8 of our 12 pieces had red sold dots next to them. We did it, Dylan whispered. We actually fucking did it. Madison, Trey, Aisha, and James all came to the opening. They hugged me, congratulated me, marveled at the work. This is incredible, Jess, Madison said, standing in front of my favorite piece. A photograph of an abandoned factory overlaid with illustrations of figures rising from the rubble, rebuilding themselves. It's so powerful. Thank you for believing in me, I said. When Emma was trying to turn everyone against me, you checked with me first. That meant everything. That's what real friends do. The opening wound down around midnight. Dylan and I were the last to leave, standing in the empty gallery looking at our work on the walls. 8 sold, 4 remaining, all of them representing the best work either of us had ever created. "How does it feel?" Dylan asked. "Like breathing for the first time?" I said honestly. In my first timeline, this night would have belonged to Emma. She would have been standing here, celebrated for my stolen work, while I was somewhere dark and broken. But I'd been given an impossible gift, the chance to relive my worst moments with full knowledge of what was coming. And I'd use that knowledge not just to survive, but to thrive. The next morning, I woke up to an email from Meridian Gallery. "Dear Jessica and Dylan, congratulations on a successful opening. All 12 pieces from Reconstruction sold by the end of the weekend. We have several collectors interested in commissioning new work. We'd like to discuss representation in a solo show for spring 2026. Please contact us to schedule a meeting." I read it 3 times, making sure it was real. Every piece sold, representation, a spring show. This was a career. This was everything I'd worked for. I called Dylan, who'd gotten the same email. We screamed together over the phone like teenagers, then made plans to meet with Meridian the following week. I also got a text from an unknown number that morning. "I know what you did. I know you planned everything. You're not the victim you pretend to be. Emma." She must have gotten a new number. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed, "I gave you exactly the same chances you gave me. The only difference is I knew what you were going to do, and I didn't let you do it. You destroyed yourself, Emma. I just made sure I wasn't collateral damage." I blocked the new number and went back to celebrating. Over the next few months, my life transformed completely. Dylan and I worked on new pieces for our spring show. Meridian featured us in their newsletter. Marcus Chen's article in The Weekly called us the most exciting emerging artists in the city's contemporary scene. I made enough money from the sales to move into a larger studio apartment in a better neighborhood. I bought new art supplies, a better computer, professional equipment. I built a real workspace. I reconnected with my mother, who came to see my Meridian show and actually cried. "Your father would be so proud," she said, hugging me tight. "I'm proud. I'm sorry I didn't believe in this before." "It's okay, Mom. I know it's not the path you would have chosen. But it's your path. And you're succeeding at it. That's what matters." Madison and I became closer than we'd ever been. She helped me navigate the business side of being an artist, contracts, pricing, collector relations. She was graduating from law school in the spring and promised to help me set up an LLC for my art business. "You need to protect yourself," she said. "Protect your work, your brand, your intellectual property. No one can steal from you if you are properly protected." I thought about Emma and smiled. I've learned that lesson already. I heard updates about Emma occasionally, always through the grapevine. She'd moved back home with her parents in the suburbs. The identity theft charges had been resolved with a plea deal, 2 years probation, restitution to me for the credit monitoring services I'd had to purchase, and a permanent mark on her criminal record. Her reputation in the art community was destroyed. She tried to claim my work, tried to tell people that Reconstruction was based on her concepts, but when she couldn't produce any evidence. And when Dylan and I showed the gallery our exhaustive documentation, she'd been banned from Meridian and flagged at several other galleries. She'd tried to create work under a pseudonym, but someone always recognized her style or made the connection. The art world was small, and word traveled fast about the artist who'd tried to steal her roommate's portfolio. I could have felt sorry for her. The old Jessica, the one from the first timeline, would have felt guilty, would have wondered if she'd been too harsh. But this Jessica remembered waking up in a psychiatric ward, restrained and medicated, convinced she was crazy because Emma had gaslit her so thoroughly. This Jessica remembered losing everything, career, friends, family, sanity, to someone who'd pretended to be a friend. Emma had gotten exactly what she deserved, and I'd given her every opportunity to be a decent person. Every time she'd made a choice to lie, to steal, to manipulate, I'd simply documented it and prepared my defense. She'd destroyed herself. I'd just refused to be buried in the rubble. 6 months after moving out, I was working on a new solo piece when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Jessica Wright? Yes?" This is Officer Karen Rodriguez from the 15th Precinct. I'm calling about a restraining order petition filed by Emma Chen. She's claiming you've been harassing her, stalking her, and threatening her career. My heart rate didn't even spike. I'd been expecting this. That's interesting, I said calmly. I haven't contacted Emma Chen since I moved out 6 months ago. I blocked her number after she sent me threatening messages. I have documentation of everything. Can you come to the station to make a statement? Absolutely. When? We scheduled an appointment. I hung up and immediately called the lawyer Madison had connected me with, a friend of hers who specialized in harassment and defamation cases. Emma Chen is claiming I'm stalking her, I explained. I haven't contacted her once since I moved out, but I'm guessing she's trying to get ahead of the consequences she's facing, make herself look like a victim. The lawyer, Jennifer Park, laughed. Does she know you've documented everything? She knows I documented the apartment stuff. I don't think she knows about the rest. Well, she's about to find out. Bring everything to the station, every blocked number notification, every piece of evidence showing you haven't contacted her, every documentation of her contacting you. This should be quick. It was quick. I showed up at the station with a tablet full of evidence, blocked number notifications showing Emma had tried to contact me 15 times from different numbers, screenshots of threatening messages she'd sent, email evidence that I'd requested no contact, security camera footage from my current apartment building showing I'd been home during times Emma claimed I'd been stalking her near her parents' house. The restraining order petition was denied within 24 hours, and Officer Rodriguez had some additional news. Ms. Chen may be charged with filing a false police report. That's a misdemeanor. Given her previous fraud charges, the DA's office is taking this seriously. I nodded. Thank you for your time. Emma was spiraling, burning every bridge, destroying what little credibility she had left. And I wasn't involved at all. I was just living my life, creating my art, building my career. The spring show, mine and Dylan's solo exhibition at Meridian, opened in March to critical acclaim. We'd created 20 new pieces for Reconstruction 2, Rebirth, exploring themes of renewal, transformation, and rising from destruction. The work was more personal this time, more raw. My contributions to the collaboration were darker, more emotionally intense. One piece bow showed a phoenix rising from ashes in illustration, while Dylan's photograph underneath showed the actual site of a building that had burned down and been rebuilt as affordable housing. This is you, isn't it? Dylan asked when I'd first shown him the illustration. This is your rebirth story. It's everyone's story, Basse, I said. We all have things we survive. We all have moments where we have to rebuild from nothing. But yes, it was my story. My literal rebirth, my second chance, my rising from the ashes of who I'd been in the first timeline. The show sold out the first weekend. Every piece, gone, and Meridian offered us permanent representation. We started getting commission requests from major collectors. At the opening reception, I stood in front of the Phoenix piece with my mother beside me. Tell me about this one, she said. It feels important. It's about survival, I said. About being destroyed and choosing to rebuild. About using your knowledge and pain to create something beautiful. You've been through something, my mother said quietly. Something you haven't told me about. I have, but I'm through it now. I survived. I'm rebuilding. She squeezed my hand. Your father would be so proud of the woman you've become. I'm proud too. That night, after the show, Dylan and I went to Cosmic Coffee, our place, where we'd created our entire collaboration over the past year. Remember when we first met here? Dylan said. You pitched the idea for Reconstruction and I thought you were brilliant but also a little crazy. I remember. You said collaboration was risky because most partnerships end badly. And you said this one wouldn't, that you'd make sure it worked. I did say that. How did you know? How were you so certain? I looked at him, this person who'd become not just a collaborator, but a genuine friend. Someone who'd helped me rebuild my entire life, without even knowing how much I'd needed it. Because I knew what failure looked like, I said. I'd seen what happens when you don't protect yourself, when you don't choose the right partners, when you don't have boundaries. And I was determined to never let that happen again. Well, it worked. We make a good team. The best. We sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee, watching the city lights through the window. I thought about timelines, the one I'd escaped and the one I'd built, about the Jessica who'd ended up destroyed and the Jessica who'd survived. In my first life, I'd been a victim. In this life, I'd been given an impossible gift, knowledge of exactly what was coming, exactly how I'd be hurt, exactly what I needed to do to protect myself. And I'd used that gift perfectly. I'd signed the lease with 30 days' notice already filed before Emma could spring her trap. I'd documented everything before she could claim I was paranoid. I'd protected my friendships before she could poison them. I'd secured my work before she could steal it. I'd built my support system before she could isolate me. I'd let her try every manipulation, every lie, every trap. And I'd watched each one fail as it hit the preparations I'd made. Emma had played the same game she'd played in the first timeline. But this time, her opponent knew every move before she made it. Not because I was smarter or stronger or better, just because I'd already lived through it once. And if you know exactly how someone is going to hurt you, it's remarkably easy to make sure they can't. 1 year after moving out, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Emma's lawyer, a request that I sign a statement saying I held no ill will toward Emma Chen, that I wouldn't discuss her publicly, that I'd remove any disparaging information about her from social media. I read the letter carefully, then called Jennifer Park. She wants me to sign an NDA, I said, after everything. She wants you to help her rehabilitate her reputation. My guess is she's trying to re-enter the art world and people keep bringing up what happened between you. What do you recommend? Tell her to fuck off. You don't owe her anything. You haven't been disparaging her publicly. You've just been living your life. If her reputation is damaged, that's because of her own actions, not because of anything you've done. I wrote back a brief response. I declined to sign. I have made no disparaging public statements about Ms. Chen and have no plans to do so. I simply wish to move forward with my career without further contact. Professional, firm, final. Emma tried twice more to reach out, once through a mutual acquaintance asking if we could talk things through, once through a long email that oscillated between apologetic and accusatory. I ignored both attempts. There was nothing to talk through. Emma had made her choices, and she was living with the consequences. I'd made mine, and I was thriving. 2 years after my rebirth, I had a solo show at a major gallery in New York. After, a study in survival featured 15 large-scale pieces exploring themes of resurrection, revenge, and rebuilding. The centerpiece was a massive triptych called 30 Days Notice. The left panel showed a figure trapped in a burning building, Dylan's photograph of an actual burning apartment complex, with my illustration of a woman surrounded by flames. The center panel showed the same figure walking out the door, calm and prepared, carrying only essentials: a fire extinguisher, important documents, a clear exit plan. The right panel showed her building a new structure from the ashes, stronger and more beautiful than what had burned. It sold for $45,000. The New York Times reviewed the show. Wright's work demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of trauma and recovery. Her figures don't simply survive. They strategically exit, document their escape, and reconstruct themselves with methodical precision. This is not passive survival, but active resistance. The review made me laugh. If only they knew how literal it was. My mother came to the New York opening, along with Madison, Dylan, and a dozen other friends I'd made in the art world. We celebrated at a fancy restaurant afterward, and my mother gave a toast. To my daughter, who taught me that there are many ways to succeed, who showed me that strength isn't just about following the traditional path, it's about having the courage to choose your own path and the wisdom to protect it. I'm so proud of you, Jessica. I cried. Happy tears this time, not the desperate tears of my first timeline. That night, alone in my hotel room, I thought about Emma, wondered where she was, what she was doing, if she ever understood what had really happened. In her mind, I'd probably always be the villain, the paranoid roommate who'd set her up, who'd documented everything, who'd ruined her life for no reason. She'd never understand that she'd done it to herself, that every trap she'd tried to set had been a trap she'd built around her own feet. that I'd simply stepped back and watched her activate each one. She'd never know about the rebirth, about the second timeline, about the knowledge that had saved me. And that was fine. She didn't need to know. All that mattered was that in this timeline, this life, this reality, I'd won. Not because I was better or smarter or more talented, but because I'd been given the gift of knowing exactly what was coming, and I'd used that gift to protect myself completely. I'd signed a lease with 30 days' notice already filed, and by the time Emma had realized she was playing against someone who knew every move she'd make, it was already over. The game was won before it even started, and I was finally, truly, completely free.